I'm here to talk about high volume asset creation for virtual try-on applications. Now, specifically in this case, we're talking about the virtual try-on for shoes. Um, and just so you know, botspot, we're based in Berlin, and we've been selling photogrammetry systems fully automated for various type of applications, just to kind of know where our background is. So obviously I'm coming from the photogrammetry scanner background. So that's obviously going to be a lot of my focus of this talk. So virtual try-on. Just so we know what we're talking about in this case is the app such as this, where you can use your smartphone and look down at your feet, and then the shoes that you want to actually take a look at will be placed over your feet in a real-time application on a phone. And again, that's the virtual try-on. I think most people in this room already understand that. But what do we know kind of about the market and about what's going on? 3D sells better. All of us know that. That's why we're all here. Interestingly, what we're finding a lot from the big corporates and a lot of the big customers we're dealing with is that they already know that. And really, a lot of the proof of concepts that are kind of going around right now all over the place is that they just need they need metrics to be able to kind of sell this up to the top of management. You know, let's take some of our best sellers, let's use our back end metrics to kind of see what type of conversion rates are happening when we start doing 3D stuff. And so they're getting these amazing numbers. And so basically, you know, everyone, or not everyone, most people we're dealing with, they already know 3D sells better. And specifically virtual try-on is, for me, kind of the first level of customer individuality. The fact that it's in real time, anyone that's using a smartphone can just point to their feet and see that product on them, and not as on someone else, but on themselves. And the fact that it's based on smartphone apps, you obviously have already the recipe for rapid scalability globally, because you don't have to provide the hardware. You just have to provide the apps, the intelligence, and the assets to be able to share this intelligence. So especially those that are now starting to roll this out big, it's really a question of scalability. And so today's challenge, and this is what a lot of people have been speaking about, I really like some of the comments Pavel made in his presentation, is 3D asset production to scale. And it's not about these kind of boutique kind of studios anymore, but it's truly kind of thinking about like a manufacturing plant, and kind of switching to that type of mentality. But anyways, photogrammetry is not perfect. We all know that. And some of the obstacles to scalability that are traditionally there are surface types, you know, shiny, glossy, transparent, structureless. They don't have the best models coming out of the scanner. Material combinations, exactly where those overlaps are and whatnot, making sure that that's clear, and then translating that to a proper UV island down in the pop line. Hardness, softness, you know, some things, because they're soft and fall apart, you can't exactly get all the views you need in a single scan and that kind of stuff. Size range. A lot of people are expecting, well, if I'm going to invest in a scanner, I want to be able to do shoes as well as sofas with the same scanner. And it's like, sorry, those are, you know, those are totally different use cases. Color fastness, obviously, when it comes to aesthetics and marketing stuff, things have to look real. And that's where calibrated coloring and whatnot plays a game, and where photogrammetry has a massive advantage there. File size, especially for real-time apps and whatnot on phones, you know, these things have to be as small as possible to avoid latency or stocking up or breaking. And again, translation to game engine, it's always kind of an issue what people are doing. So this is obviously not a shoe, I'm aware of that, but I think it shows very much that kind of process that most people are thinking. You've got this raw scan data that if you do it right, you can get really nice crispy geometries. You can also get really nice base textures, so that you don't really have to do much baking and kind of ortho builder kind of mushing around, but you can just take it as is essentially. And then the 3D artist is basically saved a massive amount of time. And then from that data, they can do the, you know, the optimized polys, the roughness maps, the normal maps, and like the entire simulated engine for the glossiness and whatnot. But what if we don't need the 3D artists? You know, and what I'm trying to say there are certain use cases where you actually don't need them. And then that allows an entire level of scalability to occur that hadn't really happened. And so how do we get there? And what do I mean in more detail? So 3-day asset production at scale. Let's talk about kind of the first phase of this. And I think, you know, it's really a lot about kind of a definition of done. And what I mean by that is, especially speaking with clients, these apps, these people, these applications and whatnot, what exactly do they truly need? And filtering that out and getting a very clearly defined good enough has been a key result or a key kind of piece of knowledge when you're speaking to these clients to understand, well, we only need to do this. Actually, that's pretty easy to do because now we don't have to have all this expectations of this kind of stuff. And I'll get into more details as I go on. But like, for example, you know, virtual try-on of shoes, it needs to be photorealistic. When you see those shoes, you have to say, oh yeah, those are the actual shoes that I'm talking about here. Not some extremely low poly or, you know, no resolution where you can't even tell the logos or that kind of stuff. And it needs to be very light, obviously. It needs to go fast. There's no crashing allowed. This thing has to go, it's real time. And as well as it has to be very clean and free of artifacts. And obviously anyone that's been doing scanning at all, you know that there's always, or many times there's artifacts, but over time, once you start, you know, with scanning, there's actually ways to scan so that you don't have artifacts completely automatically. And then that allows you to do clean and free and all this kind of stuff, type of models. But what we also found was when you start looking at very large volumes of a very specific type of asset, you're freed up to move away from this. I need to take into account all these different situations from an apple all the way up to a sofa from a single scanner because the client's only going to buy one device. But then you start to say, we got enough assets to do just with sneakers. So it allows you to kind of say, well, why don't we build specifically, hyper optimized specifically to sneakers and shoes and whatnot. So that's led us, for example, to kind of move away from this generalist approach and say, let's hyper optimize specifically for this type of asset. And we've now made a shoe scanner, and it allows you to go to from scan, completely automated. The model verification is just simply someone kind of doing the QA, taking a look at it. But now the virtual try-on app can also position automatically, which then allows you to go basically almost into a completely automated workflow into asset usage directly from the scanner. So in our case, we can provide photogrammetry pures. We're just using cameras, an entire fully automated process. And by working very clearly with the app developers and whatnot, understanding what's good enough, what do they need, we can natively export completed file sizes at 1.6 megabytes. You know, and that's coming straight out of the scanner. And that's been a big jump to be able to move forward without having to do extra conversions, especially through manual work. So kind of looking at concluding this, you've got this recipe for success based on this one specific use case where, you know, have it very clear with your clients. What's your definition of done? Clearly define good enough. And then that led to a very product line specific scanner, like a shoe scanner. So for example, if someone says, we want to do couches all day long, then we build specifically for sofas and nothing else. And then automated processing, which allows you to completely avoid any type of input or manual work from 3D artists. And then also pushing that straight into the automated positioning, which has been the big development for the virtual try-on right now. It allows for one single user to spit out 40 assets a day, in this case, shoes, without any type of manual input, except for putting the shoe in, hitting play as you would kind of at a photo studio. So thank you. That was my presentation, and I hope that was interesting for everyone.
Yes, thanks a lot, Ken. So yeah, thanks for the presentation. And I think we have already the first question here. Yeah, also people saying thank you within the chat. And again, like everyone, feel free to ask your questions via the Q&A feature of the Zoom call, and we'll be happy to answer them. So the first question from Federico is, hi, you cited explicitly the 3D scans of objects with reflective or transparent surfaces. Can you tell us more? Thanks.
I mean, obviously reflective and transparent are challenging, but reflective you can get around with, there's several lighting tricks you can do without even having to, modify the object's surface, and you can scan pretty well. A lot of that stuff is a lot of the development that's going into our scanners that are coming out brand new next quarter. So it's hard for me to answer that one specifically, because some of that is kind of, let's just say there's a lot of tricks you can do with lighting to be able to do both reflective and transparent surfaces, and it would blow your mind when you can get your hands on it.
All right. Thanks. Then we can move on with the next question. So there's another one here from Ron asking, what else is on your roadmap beyond perfecting shoe scanning? Any plans for other apparel?
Yeah, let's just put it this way. A lot of these shoe companies that we're dealing with don't just do shoes. And so the thing is that the shoes have always been kind of a low-hanging fruit to get started. I mean, if you look anywhere, even places like SketchUp, what do you see? Sketchfab, what do you see? Shoes. And so for us, it was, a lot of these initial conversations were, well, we'd like to do shoes, but if we've already got this expensive scanner, expensive relative anyways, then can we start doing backpacks? Can we start doing hats? What about ski boots? What about this? And again, it was that kind of going back to, you have so many shoes, you've got plenty to do, even if you just had 10 shoe scanners, because you're talking about this kind of almost like manufacturing lines of models. And in a manufacturing facility, every device is specifically made to do a certain thing all day long. So what we're seeing is that we're using this, and from our knowledge, that we're going to now be extending to things like backpacks, to helmets. And where backpacks come into play is that, what do you do with the straps? So you have to have this kind of solid single position that is not allowed to change while you're doing the scans. But so we're seeing this to move up to apparel, definitely. The challenging part with apparel is, what would you call it, is styling it. Like, for example, if someone sends us a jacket and says, scan this, I could throw it in the scanner, it's going to collapse on itself, but someone needs to tell me exactly in what form it needs to be scanned. Whereas things like shoes and sneakers, it's got a single form you don't have to deal with. And so those are kind of that's that expectation management you have to work through with those kind of apparels. But with our knowledge of now super focused on shoes, we can extend that and then do super focus on handbags or whatever's got to be done, or even sofas and whatnot.
Thanks. Yeah, perfectly understandable that there are like different approaches for all of these kind of apparel items, and super interesting. More questions? We have enough time.
I have one actually. Oh, but there's one in the QA. Sorry, maybe let's go with the official route first.
Oh yeah, from our CEO, from Matt.
Oh, okay, yeah. So do you have a way of making assets interactive? For example, opening doors, etc. The model, especially the scan model, is essentially kind of the baseline or kind of base asset to then be taken and do many other things. Like, we do full body scanning, and we can scan, and it's a single 3D model, but then you can have a 3D artist in the background that'll rig that model so that someone can take that and then animate. And so for things like doors and whatnot, yes, we can deliver you a door, but there's going to be an additional pipeline that's going to be necessary to add the rigging, to add the the points to be able to spin that. And that you can't, that's beyond simple photogrammetry, but that's more of kind of that workflow down the pipeline.
And that's something you typically do, like with studios or artists?
I mean, we have I would say 3D artists mainly, because we have our own in-house 3D artists for those type of special cases. Moving beyond the model is what I call it. When it's not just about, here's a device to deliver OBJs all day long. It's now much more solution based. People like I don't really care if it's scanned or how it's done. I'll buy it if I have to, I'll rent it if I have to, I'll come to you, whatever, but I'm looking for, you know, a rigged door so that I can walk through it in my app. You know, that's very different from a device to do OBJs all day long.
Right, right. And then one follow-up question there is basically any way to scale it up without too much manual artist intervention, like for maybe domain-specific use case or so, but like the question is like without too much intervention.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's as long as that's where like this lighting, we feel that like if the more we can put into the scans, the less we need the 3D artist. What I mean by is being able to be more robust. Instead of saying we can do 80% of your objects, the 20% that are reflective in China we can't do, we're trying to be able to say it really doesn't matter what you give us because we have these lighting options that can do this no matter what. And when you start doing things like automated cross polarization in your scanners, you can also automatically generate the roughness map, which then allows further scalability where you now have, obviously it's a disjointed UV island, but it's already a roughness map so that you can already get on certain assets a completely automated workflow with reflective properties. And a lot of that's being used in the museum space, for example.
Mm-hmm. Cool, many thanks. Then Pavel, your question.
Yeah, I have a question because you mentioned a couple of times you imagined this progressing also to like sofas. So while I see that, you know, in terms of apparel like shoes or stuff, I can imagine someone ships 1,000 boxes of shoes and be fine with it. But if you're talking about 1,000, I don't know, refrigerators, do you still believe like it's such an easy task like with apparel? Because like, you know, each weight like 100 kilograms, etc. And it becomes much bigger issue to tackle, you know?
Exactly. And so what we're seeing is kind of especially that large scale. I mean, the numbers you were mentioning in your talk, you know, 60,000 per month. That's where we're seeing is going to be kind of the next phase. And what you can't expect, and basically even our shoe people or shoe customers, once you get to about 150 shoes is kind of the max that people are willing to ship. Beyond that, it just becomes logistically complicated. And so we've had larger projects where what we've done is we've just delivered scanners. And then there's kind of there's different, you know, there's a pay per model, there's kind of a verification service in the background, there's a rental fee, there's certain things that are happening, but it's again kind of defining what are you trying to do? Well, we got 300 shoes, we have 1,000 shoes. We just need one to be here because we got 10,000 assets to do. And that's kind of a long-term thing, and they just purchase it straight out. But going back to your thing, when you start dealing with like refrigerators and sofas, then it's much easier to send the single scanner, even if that's a much larger object than it would be to send 150 sofas. You know, and so then it becomes kind of a combination of like pricing models so that everyone benefits and the risk is minimized on all parties.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Cool, thanks. And I think there's one more question now in the chat, which is what are some examples of super high volume assets that are perhaps second tier to fashion and apparel, e.g. large parts catalogs for submarine manufacturers? A few years ago, I met a very large global contractor that had a mandate to convert the parts catalog to real time, but no way to convert the assets in the relevant PLM systems across millions of parts.
I mean, we're dealing with, obviously if you're using traditional photogrammetry, when you start doing millions of parts, you're just kind of blocked by the processing time. The processing time becomes your bottleneck at that point. That's obviously going to get solved with render farms and whatnot. That becomes a massive challenge. I mean, we're currently in the process of designing a scanner that can do 50,000 scans in a day in a single scanner. But that's more of delivering the imagery so that there's some other fancy back-end things that are happening on the other side. And so you've got kind of a chain reaction of different, very specialized partners to be able to pull that off. So it really kind of depends. But again, if you're talking about submarine parts, you kind of are going to have to classify and kind of say this batch, this can all go through these type of scanners very fast, but your massive nuclear reactor that's in the back is going to be very different to scan than your little screws that are going to be going around the submarine. And so that would be a very long conversation of dealing with good enough, definition of done, and expectation management with such a system. But I would say nowadays that you can get there. It would not be easy, but you can get there.
Right. So I would also have, it seems that we answered, I hope this answered the question. I would also have like 2 questions.
Yeah, sure.
And they are basically both about materials. So the first one is, you mentioned roughness. So is your pipeline able to output without any artistic intervention, something like material properties, like, let's say, a metal roughness model, or like something like specularity, or yeah, glossiness, things like that,
Yeah,
go
I think,
beyond
yeah,
normals
I mean,
and base colors?
what I see is realistic, and what is truly fully automatable is, you know, your geometry, your scan geometry, your base texture, as well as a roughness map or specular reflection, depending on what pipeline you're using. But those 3 maps, you know, you can essentially scan those automatically all day long. Now, you'd think you'd be able to spit out normal maps, because there's a lot of stuff where you take really high poly stuff and then kind of use that to create a normal map to bake that on a very low poly geometry. But what we're finding is that, you know, depending on what you're scanning, there's a lot of kind of sub artifacts that can kind of show up, which then kind of render the normal map. You got to then clean up the normal map. But that's something what we're finding with like this, that one, it's kind of, that one's hard to automate because there's too many artifacts involved. But going back to specular and roughness, that one you can truly do. And the 3D artist, if they have to get involved, all they're really doing is just doing the leveling. You know,
which is still, yeah, great, because it saves a lot of time, right? So they're not
exactly.
basically touching the pixels, is what I got.
Exactly, like they wouldn't, you know, again, it goes to how much level do you need to do, but it's the idea that you can just take that kind of random chaotic UV island that gets spit out from photogrammetry. But the fact that the specular map is there, you have a UV island, but it's just hard to work with. And that's why it's really just about the leveling. And the question is that enough? And if that falls into that definition of good enough, then you can fully automate this stuff all day long.
Great. So then my second question is also related to materials. So about metallic parts, I've seen that in industry, like there are scanning systems for like quality control, like the size T-scan or however it's called. And sometimes people also use these scanners if they want to do QA on parts that they've previously sprayed on, like with some spray to make it more diffuse, and then they swipe it off afterwards. Because apparently without that they couldn't scan it. Now your scanners are based on photogrammetry. How does it work? Like if I want to digitize, let's say, the submarine parts that we were talking about earlier at like high geometric precision, and let's say they are super polished here and there, and mirroring.
I mean, it's not a secret. Again, it's about lighting. And our full body scanner, we've been delivering this already for the last year or two, but it's the combination of photogrammetry with pattern projection. You know, so it allows you to provide the benefits of a spray without physically touching.
So you're basically projecting patterns onto the object and then looking at
Correct.
that. Okay, yeah,
so the trick is how do you combine all that data automatically? How do you take the images automatically, and then also in the workflow put all that stuff together and take it out when you need to be able to move forward? Because I mean, yeah, if you're doing metal parts and you know you've got a client that does 50,000 of these pieces a day, then you can spray all day long, destroy things and whatnot. But then you have some, even in the shoe space, you have before they're doing their new season, there's all this really secretive stuff where they're getting kind of unique shoes that were done by a designer by hand. And that is one piece. And if it's something that would require a spray, you're not allowed to touch it. You know, so that shoe you can't scan traditionally. So we had to come up with a solution to do that. And like I said, lighting is kind of the way to get there. And then especially with like museum objects there, you do not have a chance to touch anything, especially spray it. You know, so this was kind of forced on the photogrammetry companies to say you gotta figure this out.